And audio.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. It's 5:15 PM. I'll call this meeting of the City of Bangor Board of Appeals to order. This meeting was rescheduled from January 16th due to the weather. Item number one on the agenda is introductions, and I'll start on my right with Jordan.
Hi folks, I'm Jordan LaBeouf.
I'm Ed Gould.
Robin Perkins.
Rachel Thompson.
Robert Ballingham.
Don McCann.
Thank you, everybody. Not on the agenda, however, but I think we have to do this for our first meeting of the year, is we need to elect a new chair for the board. Does anyone want to place their name or somebody else's name in nomination for the position of chair?
Be thrilled to nominate Ed Gould as chair.
Second.
Yeah.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, opposition, any other nominations? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? And looks like I'm the chair again. So, moving on to item number two, the minutes from the December 5th Board of Appeals meeting, which is in your packet. Hope you've all had a chance to review them. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
There is.
And a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or amendments?
Yes, I have down, Board of Appeals voted on the matter B1, where it says the condition that the parking lot will be remained in cordoned off and the applicant consents to the public hearing. I think we should eliminate the
Oh,
ED.
the
Have
typo.
remained
Right.
The typo.
All right, so if I remember my Robert's Rules of Order, I think that whoever made the motion has to now make a motion to adopt that amendment.
A motion, I propose a motion to strike the ED from remained in item B1 of the minutes from December 5th.
Thanks, Rob. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further amendments, comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it is unanimous. Item number three is a public hearing on a request for a variance appeal for non-conforming signs at 1286 Union Street. Before we move on to that, Don, since you are the associate member, you don't get to vote on this, but you're welcome to stay, and we're happy to have you. And thank you for coming anyway.
Oh, thank you.
So we have the,
And participate, right?
thank you, Dave. And you can participate, you just can't vote.
Right, okay.
Great.
Yep.
Thanks, Dave. So we have the materials in the packet, and the board would be happy to hear from the applicant.
I brought along several copies of my little presentation here, and I'll hand out to all you guys who can follow along together.
Actually, but before you get started, if you could just state your name and your residence.
Certainly. Tristan Thomas, I'm the owner of Bangor Self Storage at 1286 Union Street in Bangor.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could give a copy to Dave, so we'll have that for the record.
Thanks, Tristan.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be good.
So like I said, my name is Tristan Thomas. I'm the owner of Bangor Self Storage. I wanted to thank you guys for being here tonight. I know last meeting got canceled and there was some talk about pushing this to February, but I appreciate you guys all coming in here and camp today. So I am proposing a variance for the replacement of our business sign in its current location. The sign right now is currently on the property line, and the current ordinance states that it should be 20 feet off the property line if we wanted to replace it. I'm not arguing an error of admin as my application states. On the application, there was just no box to check for a variance of the ordinance, so I just selected the closest box. I'm the new leasee of the business, which is located on city leased land. I have an agreement with the city of Bangor to invest $335,000 into this property. and the new proposed sign was a key piece of our agreement. The current sign was built in 1987 when the property was erected. It's a self-storage business. The current sign, as I stated, it's on the property line. The current sign, it's old, it's rusted, and it's crooked. The current code allows grandfathered non-conforming signs, which we are a legal non-conforming sign, to only undergo face changes. I am proposing a complete replacement sign in the current location of the existing sign, which the new sign would conform to the current sign code, except for the 20-foot setback requirement. On the next page, I have an overview of the current sign and its situation. So the current sign, it sits on the property line, which is right north of these of our metal buildings here. It's on the white property line. That white solid line is our property line. The property line and our current sign are 40 feet from Union Street. One thing I want to point out, the neighboring properties to the left, which I believe is the base, and across the street, their property lines, for whatever reason, look to be about 10 feet from Union Street. Ours are 40 feet from Union Street. Just an observation, if our property line here was consistent with the neighboring property lines, we would be able to have our 20-foot setback to replace our sign where it currently is, and I wouldn't have had to appeal this decision. Another thing just to note, it's not really material to the variance, but the green space from our property line to Union Street, it's about a 500-foot run. This is city-owned land. From our property line inward to the buildings is city-leased land. This city-owned land has been maintained, mowed by the previous owners and myself since 1987. It's not in our lease to maintain or mow or pick up trash in this area. But obviously it would behoove us not to, because it would kind of take away from the characteristic of the property all being overgrown. Below that is a couple pictures of our current sign, and the next couple pages of it as well give you an enlarged image and the texture of the sign. It was built in 1987, it's crooked, she's aged, it's rusted. As of right now, the sign is legal non-conforming. So it was legal when it was installed. Since then, codes and ordinances have come out that have made it non-conforming. As of right now, the only thing I can do to this sign that we're looking at is just replace the face of this sign. We've changed the business. It was Econo Storage in Maine, it's now Bangor Self Storage. So as of right now, all I can do is change the face of this sign. Obviously that wouldn't help us out too much because it's still crooked and rusted. So this is why I'm proposing a brand new sign. So if you flip the page, you'll see my proposed sign. It's at the top image, you'll see the sign and its proposed location, which is the exact location of where the old sign is, which is again right on the property line. Below that, you'll see the schematics of the sign, the sizings of the sign. We have already passed this through Brenda at the Code Enforcement Office, which they've been great to deal with. And the new sign, as far as the sizing requirements of it, do adhere to the new sign ordinances. However, we have to be 20 feet back from the property line if they were to approve this. As you can see from this picture, 20 feet back from the property line, which is where that sign currently is, puts us right in the middle of our driveway. Additionally, we can't put a sign on one of our metal buildings because it wasn't built to withstand the size and the weight of a commercial sign. So it's for these reasons as to why I'm asking for a variance of the 20-foot setback requirement. All the other aspects of this sign do adhere to the current codes. It is an illuminated sign, which is allowable in the current code. One thing I want to point out, the bottom image here that says units available outdoor storage, this is not an EMC, which is not allowed in the current code, it's just a stagnant photo. The last point I wanted to make about our new proposed sign is that the overhang of the sign would not overhang into the easement or past the property line. The overhang would stop at the property line and the post would be closer into the property. So I just want to make it a point that we would not go beyond the property line. So the next page, according to the Appeals and Variances Code 260-16, I have to prove undue hardship on these 4 points. So it states, and just for ease of information, I'll just read this for you guys. So it states, before the board may exercise its discretion and grant a variance on the grounds of undue hardship, The applicant must show use below 4 points. So subsection A, the plight of the applicant is due to unique circumstances arising out of the conditions peculiar to the property in question and not due to general conditions in the neighborhood. My response, the sign was installed in 1987 and at the time it was legal. Since then, the ordinance came in and has made it legal non-conforming. The sign is grandfathered, but due to the unique circumstances of the property and when the sign was installed, I can no longer replace the sign, but I can only upgrade the space. Subsection B, the alleged hardship includes substantially more than mere inconvenience or inability to attain a higher financial return, or both. My response, there is no good place to install the new sign 20 feet back from the property line. If I did, it would be installed in the middle of our driveway. The sign cannot be installed on a metal building as it was not built to sustain a commercial sign. Additionally, if the sign was installed on the building or in the middle of the driveway, this would increase the liability of the sign falling over, getting hit, and or somebody getting injured. Subsection C, the sign to be authorized by the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. My response, there has been a commercial sign present at this location since 1987. The new commercial sign conforming to the current sign codes will not alter the character of the neighborhood. And lastly, subsection D, the alleged hardship is not the alleged hardship is not the result of action taken by the applicant or the prior owner of the property. My response, the sign was legal, non-conforming when it was installed. Since then, new ordinances have come out that have made the sign legal, non-conforming. In conclusion, I'm a local businessman trying to improve the community by purchasing value-add properties and investing capital into them to revitalize them. Since September, when we purchased the property, or leased the property, I should say, from the city of Bangor, we have already repainted all of the buildings, installed security cameras, security gate access, replaced all the doors on the property, and even started renovating the office to be in an apartment and offer another unit of affordable housing. We've already got the permit and gone through the enforcement office for that. Lastly, we have plans to continue improvements this spring with all new fencing, paving, and hopefully with the approval of the board, a new sign. I appreciate your time on this matter and ask that you guys consider granting this variance.
Questions for the applicant? Anybody?
I have a question. How much bigger is the new proposed sign than the old sign?
Yeah, so according to the current ordinance, it's not allowing us to make it any bigger.
Okay.
Which is also another reason why we're asking for a variance. The current sign, that's a great question, I should have, but just by eyeballing it, it's probably a 4 by 6 foot sign, and we're making it a 10 by 6 foot sign.
Okay.
Other questions?
The existing like metal framing structure of the sign, is it structurally sound other than being rusted and like lopsided?
In my opinion, it's not structurally sound because it is rusted.
Anybody else? I had one question at least. Is there any other location on the property where the sign could be installed, still meet the 20-foot setback and be visible from the road? And for example, I'm looking at the overhead picture of the property they have. I see that there's some green space on the left side. I don't know how wide that is.
Yep.
So I don't know if you could get the sign in 20 feet there. But is there any other place that a sign could be located with the 20-foot setback?
Yeah, so that was my first thought was, so you're looking at the one where it says 40.6 feet,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep,
My first thought was over there, but it would also have to be 20 feet from that side property
Right.
line. And I measured that and that wouldn't fit there. About the only place that it would fit would be the green space where it was due for a 5th building. According to my original 1987 site plan, that's reserved for future expansion. It was a negotiation point between me and the city to expand there. So I'd really rather not put the sign right there because if we ever did expand, again, it would be right in the middle of our driveway. So it really is the best point or the best space for the sign, in our opinion.
other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone that wants to speak in opposition to the application? Okay, So I will close the pub.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But point of, the city has its code enforcement officer here.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if Jeff speaks in the public portion or not, so,
Yeah,
okay. Then we'll hear from we'll hear the city's position on the application. Thanks, Dave.
Jeff Wallace, Director of Code Enforcement for the City of Bangor. In regards to the sign, there is no doubt that it is dilapidated, old, and certainly in need of repair. That is not a question. Mr. Thomas was right in that it is currently a non-conforming sign because of its location on the property line. Just a couple of things to clear up here. The right-of-way width on the state highways like that, that's controlled by the state. He's absolutely right, the next property up is a lot closer to the road. I don't know why, again, because the state sets those. Also, he's right, if the state didn't do that, then his sign, we wouldn't be having this meeting, but that is the way it is. Another thing, we do have an ordinance that does require property owners to mow and maintain their esplanade. Like, I have to at my house, that's just the ordinance that they have. So the mowing part, certainly appreciated, but it is by the ordinance. So a couple of things. The sign is, he could do, there was a question about the size. We have on record that the current size is a 4-foot by 8-foot sign. Could do that size, reface at this location, and not need an appeal, or the other alternative would be to move to meet setbacks. And I was also looking at the area, the green space that you were talking about, the area from his picture there above the 40.8 feet box there. Should have done measuring before I got in here, but using our parcel viewer, I measured that to be the property line, the width of the grass there, 20-some feet. Let's see if I can get an accurate one here. .7 feet. The side setback is 10. The side setback is not 20. The setbacks, what did I have those? 20 feet from the front, 10 feet from the side, and 10 feet from the rear. So I would answer Mr. Gould's question of could it be placed in that area and still be seen and meet setback? I think that it could. There is space there. So, those are, based on the ordinances, and they're written, and what they allow me to do is, again, either approve the sign with the existing size in its location, or the proposed size in a spot 20 feet and 10 feet from front and sides. If the board does find that the applicant does meet all 4 standards required to grant a variance, the city would request that the following conditions are included in the approval. One, he already touched upon, that the sign be entirely on the property of 1286 Union Street. Like you said, the edge of the, one face is the property line, and the expansion kind of goes back from there. And also, because it's been a confusion on another appeal brought forward, that he would still need to obtain a building permit. We've had some that got approved here and then just thought that was the, process there, but, if we could get those two, included, if the board does find the applicant meets all 4 standards, then, I think we'd be in good shape.
Questions for Jeff?
I have a question if the board, when you said he still needs to get a building permit, you mean,
That was a bad, sign permit. Yeah.
okay, all right, just wanted to make sure.
Sorry, good catch. Yes, it would be a sign permit.
Jeff, I guess my only question, the only thing that troubles me is whether or not this feasibly could be placed on the other side of the driveway and be in conformance with the sign ordinance without a variance. So 20 feet back, I guess, would be further back in the driveway. And I mean, the construction of this sign is a little different in that it's a single support with an overhanging sign as opposed to 2 supports with the existing sign, which I guess raises an issue for me whether or not, if this sign were placed on the grassy area on the right, would part of the sign be overhanging over the driveway, which may create some safety issues, I suppose. Can you shed any light on any of those issues for me?
With 20 feet of grass space there and your 10-foot setback, that would leave 10 feet before the sign was hanging over the driveway. And also, I think it would be oriented 90 degrees different so it could be seen. Assuming that the placement was put somewhere in relative proximity to that 10-foot setback, I don't see how it would even come close to the pavement edge there, because again, there's 20 feet, so there'd be quite a gap there.
Jeff, I don't know if this is something you can speak to or not, but it also looks like there's some electric poles running along the side there. They do look quite tall, but I don't know if that would get in the way of construction or be a liability issue or those sorts of things on that side or be obstructive.
You can see them in the picture with the new proposed sign.
Yeah. There's no doubt they're there. Not being a sign installer, I
Sure, of
can't
course.
say if they create a insurmountable problem or not. I mean, they would. Their being there makes it definitely more challenging. I don't know if it's insurmountable.
Sure.
Do you know how far setback from the driveway those utility poles are?
So there, that first one, let's measure. About 63 feet back from the property line. If we're looking at I'm looking at an overhead and there's a pole basically right at the corner of the street and the driveway. And then the next pole looks like it's about 63 feet back from the property line.
Okay, but can you tell how far the pole is from either the sideline or the driveway?
Oh, okay, yes. I get that. Our GIS is flaring up here at the moment, or maybe my phone, but. All right, now it's back. From the property line, because I mean, the poles look like they're just, back in from the edge of the grass. So it's gonna be roughly the same measurement, I mean, around 20. So I was at an angle there because I'm trying to rush, but yeah, I mean, it looks like it's right about at the edge of the grass, tar face, so it's 20 feet in, from the sideline.
The edge of the driveway is about
And the
20.
edge of the driveway is right there as well, yes.
Okay. So if the sign were to be placed there, it would be on a sloped area, partially blocked by at least that first utility pole?
At some points, yes, that utility pole would, as one were driving down the street,
Okay.
it would at points block it, but I mean, at some point as they're driving down the street now, it blocks the current sign too, so.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions for Jeff? Okay,
Can I ask one?
yeah, please, Sid.
The wire on the poles that goes along the side there.
Yeah.
Do we know?
How tall they are?
Yeah.
I can't measure that way with the parcel viewer, no.
Okay.
I don't know.
Pictures on the bottom of page 2 here. I mean, I know perspective in a two-dimensional image is hard, but that looks to be greater than 10 feet off the ground.
Not the electrical inspector, but somehow number 14 comes to mind, like 14 feet sort of a minimum, above for wires, so. If I had to pick a guess on that, I would say roughly in the 12 to 14 foot range.
Okay. Questions for Jeff?
Yeah, one more thing. Is there anything in the sign code or other places about proximity to things like electrical poles and stuff like that?
No, because, a pole may be on a certain location in my property and on a different one there and there, so it's
Sure.
kind of a unique situation and, it becomes on the applicant / sign install
To
company
figure it
to,
out. Great.
yeah, figure out what works, given the site constraints.
Great, thanks.
Other questions for Jeff? Okay, thanks. So we got into a couple of issues there that you didn't address in your presentation, and I wanted to offer you the opportunity to do that if you'd like to.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for putting that together as well. So I just wanted to make a couple comments on this new proposed location that we would disagree with. If Jeff's measurements were correct, which I'm sure they are, it appears that it perhaps could go there. However, we see that as a disadvantage to us, first and foremost, because it would be directly under the power lines. So not only do we view this as a safety issue, but more so it would just be aesthetically unappealing. Secondly, if we did put it back there and it was 20 feet back, we are legally required to have shrubbery along our fence line. If it was 20 feet back off the property, the whole view coming from Union Street, it would block our sign. Our sign is only going to be 10 feet off the ground. The shrubbery would block it coming from the airport side across. Additionally, that sign where Jeff proposed, that's where we push our snow. Granted, you could probably maneuver it around, but it would increase our liability if a plow guy ever hitting our sign throughout the year, stuff like that. Secondly, I should say lastly, we do get big trucks, potentially some 18-wheelers. I know when we had our doors installed, we had an 18-wheeler. We get people who call saying if we could take 18-wheelers that do take that turn really wide in order to get through our gate. So those are just a few points that, because I did, ideally that's what I would like to do, and I pointed that out to code. I was under the impression I needed 20 feet, but even if we could do it under 10, we would be right underneath those lines. It would just be unappealing for us to do so. And I guess the last point, we currently do have electric lines run under the ground to the current sign because it was illuminated. If we change the location over there to under the utility lines, we would have to reroute and dig up our pavement to get another electrical line under there to illuminate the new sign.
Okay. Questions for the applicant?
That's helpful, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before I close the public hearing, is there anyone else that wants to make a presentation? Then I will declare the public hearing closed and open it up for discussion by the board. And just as a point of order, I went over this with Dave, that what we should do when we vote is we should vote on each of the elements that are required to be met by the applicant for a variance separately. So I'll open it up for discussion.
It does seem to me, at least, that the first criterion is met in this case, if only because of the funny way the property line is different than the adjacent property. I mean, that does seem like a unique circumstance outside the control of the applicant.
Anybody else?
I mean, I suppose I'd say in addition to, it's also a unique circumstance that there just happens to be a power line on the one spot where it could otherwise go.
Other comments, questions, discussion? Right, and you know, just so that everybody understands where I was coming from on the issue of the alternate location, you know, I view that our duty when we're considering variances is to make sure that there is not some other way that the ordinance could be complied with other than what the applicant is proposing. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that we had that on the record, that we explored that before we decided finally. Any other comments, questions, discussion?
I'll just say I agree with what Rob was saying, and also I think C and D to me are clearly met. I think the sign would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. You know, there's an existing sign there. Replacing it with just a new sign is not altering any, like, the character in that way. And also that the alleged hardship is not the result of action taken by the applicant or the prior owner. You know, that right of way there is not something that the applicant did, and you know, the property is just set up the way it is. So I think where I get the most hung up is on B, that the hardship includes substantially more than mere inconvenience or inability to attain a higher financial return. I do think some of the points we heard in rebuttal, if you want to call it that, about, well, of course, with the power lines being a problem there, trucks coming in and out of there, and possibly the sign, if it were to go there, that would become a safety issue. So I'd just like to hear other people's thoughts, particularly on B, because that's the one that I think is the trickiest.
I mean, it does seem to me that there absolutely needs to be a new sign, right? So the grandfathered in solution doesn't seem to be a solution in this case because the sign's dilapidated. So there needs to be a new sign. But if there needs to be a new sign, it's going to be a violation of the ordinance. So yeah, I mean, so the hardship here, I suppose, is just like the necessity of a new sign. And that does seem to be a necessity.
Yeah, and I think one of the unique circumstances peculiar to the property is that this was a legally installed sign at the time that it was built. Subsequent ordinance changes made it non-conforming, which is unique to this particular property as opposed to the general conditions of the neighborhood, so.
Yeah, and looking at the pictures that were provided, those power lines are all on that side.
Yeah.
And then the pole is right at the corner of the driveway here. So maybe he could put it there, but I don't think that would be a safe place to put a new sign.
Okay, so can I then propose a motion to?
Oh, excuse me, can I
Yeah.
add something before you do that? Okay, I just want to point out a couple of things. It looks like there's actually two different paths that the applicant could use to get to where he wants the board to go. The first one would be a variance from the non-conforming sign ordinance, which is 260-17, capital A. And that would be and I'd ask if you want to get Jeff Wallace's opinion on this, that would be good too. He could replace the sign part of the sign, even if it's non-conforming. The problem is that he also wanted to make the sign a little larger and replace the post.
Right.
So that's the variance that you would need. What that section says is that non-conforming signs shall not be expanded, enlarged in any dimension, relocated, or otherwise moved. And it says, upon issuance of a sign permit from the Code Enforcement Division, the face of a non-conforming sign may be changed, provided that the non-conforming aspects of the sign are not increased. So it's the fact that the sign's a little bigger and that he needs to replace the post, which is why he would need a variance from that ordinance provision. However, there's another ordinance provision that the applicant actually kind of drove into during his speech, and it wasn't in your packets, but all that it is the setback provision for new signs. He referred to it as a new sign. So I'm going to hand these out. This is just the requirements in the particular district that this property is located in, which is the GC&S district, General Commercial and Service District. And as I understand it, and you could confirm this with the code enforcement officer if you'd like, that all the other requirements for a new sign would have been met except for the 20-foot setback, which is in the one I just handed out. It's section 260-7C. The minimum freestanding sign setback is 20 feet. So the applicant could request a variance from that provision if this is considered a new sign rather than replacing the non-conforming sign.
That's a cleaner way to do it, isn't it?
Well, the bottom line, though, is that either way, whether he needs a variance from that one or from this one, he's still got to show the
Same form.
the hardship. So it's the same vote, either direction.
Yeah.
But I would also note one more thing. There are 4 requirements for variances, A, B, C, and D under section 260-16B. But I would suggest that the board actually take 5 votes, because in that section it says, before the board may grant a variance, it must find that relaxation of the term of this chapter would not substantially depart from the intent and purposes of this chapter, and that literal enforcement of the chapter would result in undue hardship. So the hardship is the 4 things that you've been talking about, but then there's that one extra thing, that it wouldn't depart, would not substantially depart from the intent and purposes of this sign chapter.
So if we're granting the variance on the setback grounds, looking ahead into the future, if there are other changes or issues that should arise relating to this particular sign, the variance is just on the setback. It's not, doesn't have anything to do with the dimensions, because the dimensions otherwise meet the sign ordinance.
And I would ask you to confirm that with the code enforcement officer, if that's the case.
That is my understanding, yes, that there are 2 ways to approve a sign that would be what he would like, yes.
Okay.
And the other dimensions are met? The type of sign that he's proposing to put in meets the requirements for a new sign, except for the 20-foot?
For the setback, correct.
Right.
But were the property line of this property contiguous with the adjacent property, it would meet that 20-foot setback. That seems like a crucial fact, right?
Yeah.
Jeff, you attested to that, did you not?
Oh, if the property
Right.
lines lined up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then wouldn't it be a
I
problem?
forget what he provided for a measurement. What did you say, you're 40 feet back from the tower?
Correct.
Yeah, so I mean, he'd be beyond our
Yeah.
required setback. if this
ways.
property line were the same as the next one up the street.
And both properties are owned by the city of Bangor, correct?
I do believe that that next one is the city of Bangor too, but again, we don't control the right of ways on those, to my understanding, the state does, because it's a state road.
So Dave, because you know I'm a process guy, I'm a stickler for stuff like this, but looking at the application, you know, if we decide to grant the variance on the setback issue, we don't have to ask the applicant to amend his application. Looks like it's broad enough to cover that.
I think so.
Okay.
The application form
Yeah, it's
needs
not ideal.
redoing, and I was gonna talk to the
I had
code
noted
enforcement.
that, yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. So let me suggest this. Why don't we consider the application to be requesting a variance from the 20-foot setback requirement of section,
260-7HC.
thank you, Jordan. And we will consider first the four elements of the hardship, and then lastly, whether or not variance would substantially depart from the intent and purposes of the chapter. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so,
Actually, I'm saying one more quick
Yeah,
thing.
go
It's
ahead,
actually
please.
260-7H2C.
okay. Thanks. All right, does someone want to make a motion regarding whether or not the applicant has shown that that his plight is due to the unique circumstances arising out of conditions peculiar to the property in question, not due to the general conditions in the neighborhood?
I do.
Thank you, Rob. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Moving on to section B, the alleged hardship includes substantially more than mere inconvenience or inability to attain a higher financial return or both. Is there a motion?
I move that they have met this standard.
So moved. The second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Subsection C, sign to be authorized by the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Is there a motion regarding whether or not the applicant has met that requirement?
I make a motion that they have met the character of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Robin. And a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those, any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Subsection D, the alleged hardship is not the result of action taken by the applicant or a prior owner of the property. Anyone want to make a motion?
Move that they have met this standard also.
And a second? Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. And then the last question is whether or not the variance would not substantially depart from the intent and purposes of the chapter.
I move to find that relaxation of the term of this chapter would not substantially depart from the intent and purposes of the chapter.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. The application is approved. Thank you. Okay. That's item number 3 on the agenda. Item number 4 is other business. Does anyone have any other business to bring before the board?
I have a question.
Sure.
Because we have a potential applicant for the next meeting, and there could possibly be 2 at that meeting.
That's right.
Can we do it all at one meeting instead of having multiple meetings?
Whenever we have an applicant, we always have a follow-up meeting. It's called a finding of facts meeting. It has to be held within 7 days of the vote to approve the written notice of decision. So we have to have 2 meetings, but there are 2 applicants, And so what we were gonna try to do is see if we could do both of those appeals on the same night,
Yeah.
which would result in 2 meetings instead of 4.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah.
So if we do have to have both of those meetings, we will do both of them in the same night, is I think what we're
Correct,
clarifying.
if that's what you're
Yes,
asking, yeah.
that's what I'm at.
Okay.
Great.
All right, anything else? And we are on for the 31st for findings of fact on this application.
Yes,
Okay,
at 5:15?
That's what, yeah.
5:15.
same bad time, same bad channel? Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I do.
And it's a vote unless doubted. Thank you, everybody.